The following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
We are back. Bronx Roots. Mike Preminger, David Hubler. I'm Ralph Tycho, the Queensite, pretending to be a Bronxite. Rose Niss would say, you're not pretending. My house is your house. And it was on Valentine Avenue near Harris Field. Thank you guys for joining me yet again.
Well, you're
welcome. It's fun. This has always been fun.
This is a great way to spend Sunday mornings. And let's start with you, Michael. You're all replete in your Hall of Fame outfit. You tell us.
Yes, and I'm watching. I'm multitasking. I'm sort of watching some of the Hall of Famers getting off a bus. And they say there's a crowd of like 50,000 people. But I wear my blazer, and I haven't, there's a stickball. Shouldn't there be a Hall of Fame for stickball?
Absolutely.
I was thinking of it.
Yes. David mentioned it this morning.
Yes.
A good stickball hit
right?
is 2 sewers.
Right. 2 sewer hitter, right. And I told him how I ended my stickball career, hitting one onto the roof of the building down the end of the street, just like as for a home run, just as Ted Williams did. He ended his career with a home run.
Hey, see, there you go. I always thought that there was, I always knew there should be a comparison between the two, but I didn't want to give you a swelled head.
No, thank you. Yes, I appreciate that.
Well,
yes,
I'll tell you who would be in there
for
this picture on the internet is Willie Mays. When he first came up with the Giants, he lived in a boarding house about 2 blocks away from
the Polo Grounds.
From the Polo Grounds on St. Nicholas Drive. And he would go out and play stickball with the kids. And there's an excellent photo on...
yes, I've seen that one. You're right, Ralph. Yep. Mm-hmm. Well, very well known.
He just has this beautiful look on his face, and it isn't an easy sport. It's like baseball, hitting a ball with a round bat, a round ball, and squaring it up is the toughest thing to do. And when we were kids, we could identify the good athletes by their stickball or their punch ball skills. Did you guys have punch ball?
Sure.
Oh, yeah.
Sure. When the cops took our bats away, we used to play punch ball.
Right. And they took our fingers away.
That was awful.
Yes. Oh, it really hurt for a few days, I'll tell you.
Yeah, but you get used to it. Life is adjusting. If you get adjust to no fingers, you can adjust to most anything.
It's a telling sign of the changing times. If that was one of the big tasks of the 52nd precinct where we lived, that one of the main chores was to take away these broomsticks from these kids who were playing in the middle of the street, playing stickball in the middle of it. I mean,
they're going to harm someone.
Right, yeah. Because I remember what we used to do, and sometimes they would assign a kid to go down the end of the other side of the street and watch for the cops. And if a cop car was coming up, we'd stick the bat, we'd not stick it, but we'd throw it under the bottom of a car so that we could get it later, but the cops wouldn't see it.
Right.
So we played with just a one stickball bat, which sometimes was actually a real broomstick. And Ralph, when you mentioned the round bat, the difference was that the stickball bat, of course, was much narrower in circumference than a baseball bat.
My block, maybe
could tell the good ball players.
We didn't throw any sticks under the cars. We just threw a kid named Melvin under the car. we were much tougher.
But yeah,
it's tough to get him out if no one cared to get him out. You know, just.
He stayed there, yeah, under a 52 Chevy.
I don't know, Melvin. We all grew up. Melvin's under a car.
Melvin's under a car. Did you guys watch or was it the week before, the Ted Williams?
No, but that's what we were talking about. Yeah, that's what we were talking about.
That. See? And it still isn't baseball. I'm sure you talked about this. They are, if you're 3 out of 10, you're a great player.
Right.
In any other sport, 3 out of 10, you wouldn't even be in the league. If you said complete passes out of 10 at football,
baseball is
forget about it.
Continual failure. You've got to overcome the fact that you're not going to do well 7 out of 10 times.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yep. And
that's like getting on stage, telling your act 10 times, and you bomb 7.
Yeah,
you do well on 3, and you're a superstar.
Yeah.
That's right. Absolutely. There's so many people who don't appreciate that and other facts about the game. There's just a piece in the paper today in the Washington Post. Some executive, some arcane sport. I don't know. It sounded almost like a cross between that extreme sport and uphill skiing or something. I don't know. But, well, it's hard. Uphill skiing is hard. And it takes a lot of energy. But the guy was saying, well, he said, well, if you've seen one baseball game, you've seen them all. Now, anyone who knows anything about baseball knows that that's about as truthful, as...
That's totally polarly opposite.
Absolutely. Because
there's
how many ball players
anyway twice
right,
and you see something that surprises or you've never seen before.
That's exactly. There's one ball player who says that, or a former ball player who says, you see something different every time you come to the ballpark, and even announcers who have been around for a good number of years will, on occasion say, "Wow, I've never seen that at a game before." So I thought his ridiculous comment was, super ridiculous.
Look at the guy on the Angels, this 28-year-old rookie catcher after, what did they say, 10 years in the minors, and he came up and he just has, 8 RBIs, 10 RBIs in his first 2 games.
Wow.
Oh. He had 4 and then 6, including 2 3-run home runs. Never been done before. So, like you say, you never know.
No, exactly.
You never know.
And every game is different. And frankly, you could almost say that about just about every sport, because if it was always the same, who would go to a second time? You would never go again. But with baseball, it really is its uniqueness of play on the field. This guy just doesn't know what the hell he's talking about.
No. It is a mind game. It is only dull to people
who are dull. That's right. Yeah. I've said that to so many people. It's only a dull game to dull people.
Right. If you can't sit and appreciate the potential strategy on every play, between every pitch, it's just the perfect game. Just as chess is the perfect game that you play on a board. Baseball's the perfect game you play on the field. That's how I look at it. But
I always like Chinese checkers myself.
Yes, I'm with David.
Yes,
because
the sound of the marbles are just exciting and
click on the little wheel on the little holes. Fantastic.
Oh yeah. Oh,
today's days
nothing beats
red
that,
Chinese
really.
checkers.
What?
The red Chinese checkers.
Red Chinese. Okay.
But you guys must have had Parcheesi games, board games. We didn't talk about this much, but when we were kids, Chinese checkers was one of them. Parcheesi was another one. That was almost a staple for families. Did you guys sit around and play board games?
No, we just sat around on a board.
Board
Either was on.
Cheesy. Wasn't that with dice in a little cardboard thing?
A little cup that you throw and
Yeah, and then you'd move the die up and down a thing. Yeah, no, we played a little of that, but most of the games we played were outdoor games, and you had a season for each game. I mean, and it always marveled me. I was always amazed at suddenly it was marble season. I mean, how does anybody know? But all of a sudden, the kids would come out of their buildings with a bag of marbles, and the first guys out would set up their little stall on the. This is a time when you didn't have the cars parked all down the street, up and down the street. There were a lot of open areas on the curbs. So you'd either be a player or you'd be a banker, let's say. And remember? Sure.
Oh, I agree, and I agree in the fact that you didn't. All of a sudden, it was marble season.
Yes.
It was the funniest thing.
I know.
But also, and then we would tell some cars, or if cars wanted to park, and say, "Hey, get out of here! It's marble season.
Right.
You can't park here." Because you needed that space.
Yeah. You'd set up a marble right there, and other kids would from different areas across the street in the what we used to call a gutter, but it's the street.
The gutter.
The gutter, right?
Hey.
Yeah. But there might be somebody listening who's not from New York who thinks of a gutter as a narrow ditch on the side of the road. But anyway, I mean, and if you'd win like 3 marbles if you hit it from fairly close in. If you hit the marble, that and then a few more marbles if you were further back, and from all the way across the street. That was like the grand prize. You could win a lot of marbles that way. The dumbest game.
Did you use sometimes shoe boxes?
Yes, the shoe boxes were a good one too. Yeah, right, Mike. Yeah.
Because you would make like 3 holes in the shoe boxes, or 3 sort of holes. So and depending on which hole your marble got into, you'd win.
Yeah, they were the holes were different sizes.
Yes,
so,
yes.
And also they did it with the guys who decided to make it like a full-time career. They used a wooden cigar box because it would last a lot longer than a cardboard box. And the other thing you could do with the cigar box was you'd use the cover as a ramp. And you'd roll the marbles, and if they rolled up and into the box, you would win. If they didn't roll into the box and roll back down, the guy whose box it was would collect the marbles. But I always thought the stupidest game was where somebody took control of the sewer in the center, the sewer cap.
I was just going to say that.
What did you think? No, what did you think of that game?
No, that you would hold the marble, you would drop the marble. And if it went in the hole in the sewer, you'd win whatever.
Right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. But you'd lose that marble. I mean, the other games in the boxes, and the reason that was tricky.
Forever.
Yeah, the reason that was tricky was because the sewer caps were embossed with like property of New York City or something, and they had like little ridges and stuff in them between the holes. So it wasn't just a simple matter of dropping a marble or rolling a marble up onto the sewer cap and winning, because it would bounce back. It was almost like a game in the arcades where you'd think it was easy to do, but it isn't as easy as it's supposed. But still,
right.
But then again, you'd lose the marble, go right down in the hole. But that was marble season came just automatically. The other seasons were easier to figure out. When the baseball season started, you brought out your glove. When the football season started, you had football games. And of course you had basketball games all year round in the schoolyard. But marble season was really, and the same thing is true about stickball for a good extent, because the weather, the determined how early in the spring you got out for stickball, and of course making sure there was no snow in the streets as well.
It was basically coincide with baseball season.
A little before, if possible, because sometimes the grounds were wet for playing baseball. But if the streets were dry and not full of snow, you could play stickball, and it was much easier to play stickball because you didn't need that many people as for baseball. I remember on my street we had a lot of father-son games on Sunday mornings. The fathers would play the sons.
Oh, really?
And stickball. Mm-hmm.
In stickball, no kidding.
Yes.
I don't remember.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Passing on the tradition.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, I, a number of years ago, and I was one of the proudest moments of my older son, well, for me, proudest moment. I don't think he recognized the significance of this. If you recall, I guess it was during what's his name's administration when New York just about went bankrupt, and there was a group of, and the New York Post, I think, headline was "To hell with New York," or something to that effect. Drop dead.
Oh,
remember? Drop dead. New York.
It was a president that didn't want to bail him out.
Right. I think it was Ford. Ford to New York, drop dead.
Was it Ford?
I think it was.
It could be.
It was. Yeah. Anyway, so there was a group of people who worked for the Washington Post who were all from New York, and they formed this group called Ex-New Yorkers for New York, and I joined, of course, and it was just an ad hoc kind of group, but they decided, and it got a fair number of people. They decided that they were going to hold an old-fashioned New York street gathering. And they even got a Sabret's truck in there with hot dogs and stuff.
Oh, wow.
And it was like behind my, actually the building I worked in, at Voice of America, was a street right behind that, because they chose that street because it had sewers in the center.
Oh.
So they could play marbles there or stickball, and we all came out, and it was a wonderful afternoon. And I brought the kids and my son who was a very fine athlete. They had this contest of hitting us. They even had Spaldings. They'd got a collection of Spaldings together, and they weren't playing stickball like we did down the length of the street. But if you could, they'd pitch it to you if you could hit it, across the street. And Robert, who had never had a stickball bat in his hands before, hit one over the roof of of our building, the building I worked at, which was like a 5-story building.
Wow.
And, like a chip off the old block, as we say. And I said, wow, that's really great. He didn't understand the significance of what he had done. But it was a wonderful afternoon, just all former New York residents, natives, putting together an old-time New York street gathering. So they even played stickball.
Nice.
That is very nice. That is very nice.
And then
what's going on in Trump land? We got to go to it because it's so vitally important. Do either of you guys think that this week's happenings will really be the beginning of the end?
Oh, you mean the coming week? Yeah.
Or is he just going to continue to be the Teflon president and things are going to roll off? It's getting to the point where you got a guy saying that he knew about the meeting with the Russians, and I can say that could be treasonous. Right?
Well, I've said that, yes. Yeah. You know what he said this morning on I guess it was either a tweet or early morning talk shows, that he's not averse to shutting down the government if the Democrats won't come across with all the money he needs to build his wall, $31 billion.
Is that right? Is that
yeah.
what
He says, yeah, he'll shut the gun. Now, I don't believe he can do it on his own. I mean, it has to be, through Congress. I don't think he can do it. But this is what he said today. Unless the Democrats come across with this, I think it's $31 billion to build and fund the wall. He's just going to shut down the government.
Where does that obsession with the wall come from? Is it just something he said once, and now he has to back it up? It's like the worst human frailty you could have is you make a statement and can't say, I was wrong about that.
Yeah. Well, that's what they accuse him of. That's what a lot of people say. He's incapable of apologizing or retracting a statement.
Oh, that's a good point. He just... I tell you, I think
can either of you project what's going to happen? I mean, not just this, but down the road, because we're so polarized that trying to compromise with people that are Trump supporters, it's out of my realm of thought. You can't compromise with people.
No.
Compromise comes from, if you have some insignificant disagreements or you have disagreements that can be solved. How can you compromise with a man who takes kids away from their parents?
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And
or wants to pull back health care for the elderly.
Take away Meals on Wheels.
Yeah, Meals on Wheels, right, yeah.
That's where you really need to start cutting back, right?
Yeah.
Take away school kids' lunches. Boy, we got to save money, so that's the way to do it.
Well, Reagan, remember his ketchup is a vegetable? I mean, it's not just, by today's standards, that's benign.
And I think he gave way to homelessness as we know it by just putting people out on the streets, literally, from mental institutions, not taking care of people. I don't know where that comes from. I don't know where people get the idea that everything that we do for the good isn't socialism, from the libraries to the police to the way the buses run to the way the garbage gets picked up.
Right.
Everything is to take care of the masses. And how do we let big businesses and government get away from that theory?
The Democrats made a big mistake, and Bernie Sanders is probably most to blame for talking about democratic socialism. Socialism is not the word you ever want to hear or speak, because these people out there in the hinterlands and, the troglodytes and knuckle draggers, whatever you want to call them, that to them is the equivalent of Red China, the Soviet Union. They have no idea, no concept of how the Scandinavian countries and to a certain extent Great Britain are socialist-oriented economies, and that's the kiss of death to them. That this socialism is, they equate it as the same. Socialism and communism. And that's been a big mistake, and I hope it dies very quickly before we really get into the campaign season.
Well, David, isn't that the girl in the Bronx?
Yes. Yeah.
And getting a following and saying that
she sure is. Yeah.
Party has to go.
Right. Right. And I hope they
is that in the Bronx or is that in Queens?
It's partially both, from what I gather.
Yes.
Oh, okay. A district that covers both the Bronx and the Queens.
The intelligent part is in the Bronx.
Well, I'm certainly not equipped to argue that. But I get a smart person in here. You might get Shelley Levinson from my neighborhood who grew up in apartment 401 in the next building. I was in 401 in my building, and he got the brains of the 401 on 91st.
the whole line, huh? Yeah, no,
he
seriously.
Got a scholarship to Columbia. He got this, that, and the other thing. Not me. So
well,
I'll go along with that. The smart part in Brooklyn.
No, I'm kidding, but the truth is that somehow she has to be tampered down a bit. She'll probably win, but she's being held up by the right, as this is what we're heading for if these people get elected. So
well, and what are we headed? What is the big crime against the nation for what we're headed for? People taking care of themselves. I think it would be easier to define the word socialism for the folks and break it down and put it on quiz shows or whatever so they learn the definition. That just because there's an ism at the end doesn't mean it's communism.
Right. Well, that's a good basic motto, or but you don't want to even mention the two in the same breath.
Right. Well,
but I think we may be heading toward a constitutional crisis. That's my feeling, because the right, especially the hardline right in Congress, they won't, and that's what you were saying, Mike. They just won't buckle. They won't change.
No.
They won't compromise. And some of them are out there trying to, heading for leadership positions. This Jordan from Ohio, who's now being accused of, standing by while there were athletes who were being sexually abused by the wrestling staff.
Oh, he's a politician now, and
he's a congressman from Ohio.
Kill his career right there.
It won't. It hasn't. He's running for Speaker of the House. I don't know I doubt he'll win, but he's actually. That's their thinking. They don't do anything wrong. He's running instead of resigning. In this, because so many athletes have come forward to say, "Oh yeah, he didn't do anything at all." They're not accusing him of participating in this sexual abuse, but they are saying that he knew of it and didn't do anything about it, and he was on the staff or faculty of the university.
It reminds me of Penn State.
Yeah, exactly.
Giving permission for people to do it, that's what happens in the hierarchy of the Catholic Church. Not every priest is an abuser.
No.
But every priest that knows something is an enabler. So, which is worse? Not which is worse, but isn't that the crust of it? If you enable others to do it, aren't you a part of it?
Of course.
And for that to come out and for it not to affect his political career amazes me. It's just like
I know, and to think and to have the chutzpah to think he could be Speaker of the House. Their thinking is 15th century. It's hard to fathom, but I do think that if things continue, and that once the report comes out from the Mueller Commission, there's going to be a lot of shrieking and yelling and screaming and finger pointing. And
well, if we don't get the House and the Senate back, it's who's
I'll go for 1 out of 2 right now. I'd take 1 out of 2 just to to help put a break on all this nonsense.
Right.
It's off. I'll give you an example how deep this thing goes. Sunday morning, I get a chance to actually read the newspaper. There's a small office in the government. It's pretty much independent. It was set up during the Obama or Bush, I forget. Anyway, I think it may have been even the Bush administration. And it's an organization that whose strict mandate is to help nations overcome poverty. And what they do is they bring together. It's a small group. There's maybe 50 or 60 in there, led by an administrator, and they're all experts in the field. They're not, political partisans. Then most of them come from academia, and under Trump, they have dismissed most of the professional staff, and they have appointed several people, including a couple in the leadership group, that have absolutely no knowledge or experience in the main task of this agency. And one of them turned out to be, he graduated college last year, and he's like a deputy administrator, and he's also the son of somebody maybe not in the cabinet, but a close supporter of Trump. And there's another guy like that who graduated a few years earlier, and I think his field was English literature or something. I mean, and because they both had connections to Trump, and they've gotten rid of now. Then it's not an agency where these people are making a fortune, but they're seeding this agency with know-nothings. And that's just one small agency that Trump, I'm sure, never even heard of. Even in all the briefings he got coming into the White House, it was never mentioned. But that's what happens when the famous Wind in the Willows, the Kenneth Graham so-called children's book, when the Stoats, the little evil Stoats, they're like gophers and things, took over Toad Hall, they destroyed the place. And that's exactly what these guys are doing to federal agencies, large and small.
Now, is there ever a time when he can be held accountable for his random thinking, where people come in and say, he's just not equipped to be president mentally? Whether they get him for something, conspiracy, is there anybody in the government who can come in and say, he needs to be examined mentally?
Well, I don't know.
If a guy, if it's a Captain Queeg where he's just crashing, coming down, just for can they tap him on the shoulder and say, you need a rest? Or
get thee to a golf course. What? There are constitutional means to remove a president besides impeachment, but it's a pretty tough row to hoe. In fact, it's rarely been done.
If you make a statement that says, I'm going to close down the government unless I get my way, shouldn't that be enough?
No.
Has there any other president threatened in negotiation to come across party lines, and that's how you open negotiation, by saying, I'm going to close down the government? That statement alone should tell you.
Well, there are other statements that he's made that are much closer to treason or reason for removing him. Look what he called Putin's suggestion that they exchange, diplomats because they're all guilty of, and allow Americans to observe Russians interrogating those 12 indicted Russian hackers in exchange for allowing Russian officials to examine the former U.S. ambassador to Russia and several others for illegal activities in Russia. And he called it an incredible offer. Well, any other president would have just said, shut the door. Never gotten beyond a sneer or a Snicker. It's colluding with the enemy.
Just to fix the election, and to deny that he knew these people. He knew Putin in 1987.
Yeah.
Oh, Russia was lending him money because the banks.
That's right.
The banks here would not.
He was He had so many bankruptcies. Why would the U.S. banks continue to lend this guy money? And I'm sure Jared Kushner is in the same boat, because he bought that what used to be called the Pan Am building. Remember the Pan Am building? It was down on Fifth Avenue. It stood right there in the middle. And then when Pan Am went under, the building changed hands and stuff, and I think it was 666 Fifth Avenue or something like that. Well, Kushner bought that building, and the value has just tanked, and he's in debt up to his eyebrows over this particular investment, and he's had to go to Russia to get bailout money to pay the mortgage.
So how could these people make government decisions in
exactly
its best interest if they're indebted to these people?
Of course. That's the big $64,000 question. I mean, they tried to, remember Kushner lost his security clearance, and then he miraculously got it back. I mean, he shouldn't be in the White House in the first place. What experience does he have? Who brings in their son-in-law and their daughter to run foreign affairs?
Right.
I mean, they accused the Kennedys of nepotism when Robert Kennedy became Attorney General, but he was a qualified attorney.
Exactly.
And they took a lot of hits from the Republicans for that.
Yep.
But what's going on there now, and the money that he's raking in from the hotel down the street?
Can you imagine
they may get him
how
on the
Republicans would react if Obama were doing some of the things?
Of course.
They'd have had him hung from a tree.
That's right. Yeah, for more reason than just that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, God. I know it's awful. It's just terrible.
Okay, now I'm going to ask you guys both to please leave us with something positive about anything. Is the economy really improving, or is it just for the rich who invest in the stock market or whatever? Is it improving for the people who are going to go out and vote? Because if so, they vote oftentimes with their pocketbook. So what's it going to be along those lines?
I think the rich are going to keep getting richer, and everybody else is going to suffer big time.
I think so, too. I think Mike's right.
I really do.
Yeah. Because this tax cut, first of all, the tax cut for the middle class expires. The tax cuts for the rich do not. So right there, you've got a situation. Who's favored in this deal? Even a fifth grader or someone with a fifth grade education should be able to realize that if you're getting a good deal that's just going to stay forever versus a good deal that's only for a few years, who's getting the better of the good deals. So, I think Mike's right. I think, plus there are a lot of economists who say that we're heading for an economic dip because it's unsustainable, especially if he continues to add billions to the debt. Well, where's this $13 billion going to come from for his wall? Nobody has that.
Well, by cutting other government programs that are helping the...
Yeah, but there aren't. You can't cut $13 billion out of a budget, even over a decade, and not really hurt people, which they don't care about doing as long as it's not their own. That's
There you go.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm going to ask you guys the $64,000 question, and that revolves around Iran. Is he going to use a war with Iran right before the elections as a diversion, so we don't get rid of a sitting president while we're at war? And does Iran really need to be stopped? What's your opinion about that? And can you remain objective? I know it's difficult for me because of Iran's funding of the Palestinians.
Well, it's interesting. Iran, under the Shah, was one of Israel's biggest supporters. They provided a great amount of the oil that Israel uses. Most people don't know that. When the mullahs came in, the mullahs cut off the oil supply, which now Israel gets elsewhere. But at one point, Iran was on Israel's side, if you will. I don't think there's going to be a war. I don't think there's any. First of all, he pulled us out of the nuclear accord, but the other nations are still in there. There's about 6 or 7 other nations that signed on to that accord, including Iran. And so far, 6 out of 7, you got to figure the 6 know a bit more than the 1. And so I don't think there's going to be a war. He's just bloviating as he's wont to do. He's looking for trouble. He's constantly looking to roil the waters, because he doesn't know anything. He doesn't know anything about international affairs, and still doesn't.
Well, I might have mentioned this last week, but the way he just boxed out the Queen on the podium, walking along, and he just kind of cuts her off.
I know.
92-year-old woman.
Yeah, even if it was just a woman in the street,
right, exactly.
Walking along Fifth Avenue, Well, remember he did that to, what was it? That ambassador when the group was it during the UN conference or something. He pushed his way to the front of the the front of the group.
I think it was the Canadian.
No, it wasn't Canadian. It was something. It was one of the M countries, Moldavia or something. It was an East European country. I mean, just a total disregard. He just pushed him out of the way. The guy was the president of the country. Yeah, he has no couth. He's totally.
He has nothing.
Nothing. He has absolutely nothing.
There used to be an expression, the ugly American, traveling abroad and this and the other thing. Imagine what they think of us now.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people who have an understanding of the country take pity on us that we've got this guy.
Right.
I mean, it was like when Bush was reelected, and the headline in one of the British tabloids was something like, how can 50 million Americans be wrong again? They don't realize. To use a very ungrammatical term, they're wronger now than they were then.
Well, those are people who are going, we might have put more into the American Revolution had we known.
Yeah.
Might have put, we never would have let this happen. All right, guys. The subject matter wasn't all that great, but talking to you guys is fun and enlightening. So.
Well, we always have a good time, guys.
Yeah.
We'll be back next week, and I thank you.
You're
okay.
All right, guys. Be well.
Okay.
Thanks for listening out there. We'll be
I got to
back
go look for my Hall of Fame sweatshirt.
Oh, okay. It hasn't started yet.
Oh, okay, good.
No, it started.
All right, we get to watch that. We get to watch Trammell and Morris inducted.
Yep.
Okay.
Detroit.
Bye-bye.
Adios, ladies and gentlemen.